It's the beginning of the end with the last week of the NHL season upon us, and the playoffs are taking shape. There's also been more buzz around the Arizona Coyotes moving to the Beehive State, plus a full weekend of games ahead with one clinching scenario for tonight, all on today's Locked On NHL podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday, everyone, and thanks for making Locked On NHL your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner from Locked On Flyers. I'm here each and every Friday with Gil Martin of Locked On Islanders. You can find us over on YouTube, on the SiriusXM app, or anywhere you listen to podcasts to get our latest episode as soon as it's available here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. Indeed knows when you're growing your own business, you have to make every dollar count. That's why with Indeed, you only pay for quality applications that match your must-have job requirements. Visit Indeed.com/locked-on to start hiring now. Terms and conditions apply. How are we doing today, Gil?
We're doing well. Can't believe we are so close to the end of the season, and it's an exciting time. And those final playoff spots are getting clinched. And I mean, wow, how did we get here from the start of the season? It feels like it went by so quickly.
Time is a flat circle, as they say. But that being said, before we dig into the playoffs and scenarios there and matchups, we do have to give our congratulations, although probably begrudgingly for both of us with our teams that we cover. Sidney Crosby is in the news because he has moved into the NHL's top 10 rank in points over his career. He's the 14th player in league history to have 1,000 or more assists. The Pens are back in a playoff position. Like, you do, in fact, have to hand it to him.
No, absolutely. And, 1,000 assists is an amazing milestone. His first assist came back in his very first NHL game on October 5th, 2005 in New Jersey, and he assisted on a goal by Mark Recchi. So we're going back
legend
quite a ways there.
Yes.
For Sidney Crosby, and congratulations to him. And the Pittsburgh Penguins amazingly seem to be finding their stride at the right time, and Sidney Crosby's been a big part of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know we have talked a lot more about the East because that's where the drama has been with this playoff race. But I do want to start with the West this time around, just to give them a fair shake. And since we have spoken last on this show, the Kings have clinched a playoff spot. And we're just kind of looking at what's going on with Vegas, I think, is the big question mark. And will they miss the playoffs this time around, or will they be able to get it done tonight?
Yeah, I mean, they're 3 points up on the Blues right now. The Blues have 3 games left. So obviously, they are in a situation where they almost have to win out and get a little bit of help because Vegas has 4 games left on their schedule. So, the Golden Knights are the only team in the West who have yet to clinch a playoff berth, who are in a playoff spot right now. And, it's up to them to get it done, and they can clinch tonight if things break right for them.
Yeah, I think that's obviously, spoiler alert, going to be the game to watch that we talk about later in the show. But I think, like, with everything that has gone on with Vegas this season, for them to be sort of the last team battling for a playoff spot is, I think, simultaneously surprising and not so surprising. I think that they just have this history of winning, right, since the very beginning and having success. But that, you know, at what cost? And I feel like we're at the tipping point of at what cost in terms of burning through guys and trying to patch things up at the trade deadline to make it work. And like, is this a sustainable thing for Vegas to keep doing?
Yeah, and it's still amazing how they always seem to find a way to stay under the salary cap as well. But
Right.
that it always felt like smoke and mirrors when they were doing that for whatever reason. But yeah, I mean they are patching it together and trying to find ways, and they do seem to find ways. But the Blues aren't giving up by any stretch of the imagination, even though at this point they are a long shot.
Right. And so you're also looking at a really tough road ahead. If we assume that they are going to clinch, and just because of the game in hand situation, like the Blues just don't have enough runway here. They would face, in the current scenario, the Dallas Stars in the first round of the playoffs, who have been just a remarkable juggernaut this season.
Yeah, and the Stars, I think they don't quite get as much as attention and respect from the national media or the North American media as they deserve. They have just been so consistent over
Yeah.
the course of the season. It's not like they went on this, 9-game winning streak or any, but they're just so consistent. Their road record is even better than their home record right now. It's just they're effective. They've won 8 of their last 10. They just keep going and playing well all season long. So lots of credit to the Dallas Stars.
Right. And, we have out west the Nashville Predators kind of locked into that first wild card spot. So it's just the second wild card spot open there. So it's really like there's not any wiggle room here for them, even on that front. And so I do think that Vegas would come into that series as a very, very severe underdog.
Absolutely. And yet, there is that certain value to being the defending Stanley Cup champs where, you know what it takes to go all the way, and maybe that experience will make that series a little more competitive than it looks like on paper.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. But as it currently stands with the Western Conference matchups, we talked about last week, I believe, not liking the playoff format overall, and that it doesn't have as interesting matchups, and it tries to create these divisional matchups. And the West actually does have some interesting matchups as it stands. Just talking about Dallas versus Vegas, the Jets versus the Avalanche, I think is a really interesting matchup. And the Canucks versus the Predators, like I feel like that could be a knockdown, drag out fight, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That can be really an amazing series, and the Predators kind of a year ahead of schedule as to where most people thought they would be, and they both of these teams are kind of struggling. They're both 5-4-1 in their last 10, so it's not like they're coming out of the season on a hot streak. But boy, that is going to be a very good series with contrasting styles on the ice as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, the other matchup as it stands would be the Oilers versus the Kings, which I think is just fun on its own. I think that the styles match up in a really interesting manner there.
Absolutely, and it's getting to be sort of a traditional rivalry in the playoffs now.
It really is. Looking out east, the Islanders just keep rolling, it seems like.
Yeah, 6 in a row. Talk about a team on a roller coaster. They had a 6-game winning streak, then they lost 6 in a row. Now they're back to the 6-game winning streak. This team is almost just very, very difficult to figure out. So inconsistent, a minus 20 goal differential, and yet they're getting very close to clinching a playoff spot.
Yeah, and for the other teams in the race there, the Pens game against the Red Wings was a disappointment for all because it was a 3-point game, which is worst case scenario for everybody. But the Pens are hanging into that second wild card spot right now.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing because, the Pens have 86 points, Washington, Detroit, and Philly each with 85. Here we are with everyone having 3 games left except the Flyers with just 2.
Right.
And it's probably going to go down to the very last game. And oh, by the way, Islanders close out their season against the Penguins. So that may have some implications as to who finishes third, who finishes as the second wild card, or even just who gets into the playoffs.
Yeah, the Flyers' 2 remaining games are against the Devils and Caps, so, no lack of, healthy competition and divisional rivalry there as well, but they did get, a win finally, last night against the Rangers in New York, so that was really good to see to try and at least finish out the season on a better note.
Yeah, can't have that long losing streak late in the year. It leaves a bad taste in everybody's mouth throughout the offseason. So, and it also sets up those final 2 games to be meaningful. So, good to see that the Flyers ended that losing streak.
Yeah, and they will be honoring Wayne Simmons on his retirement in the game on Saturday against the Devils. So that will be fun as well. In the meantime, the Arizona Coyotes are back in the news again in a not so great way. This drama has been dragging along, and it seems like there's a little bit more movement on that front. And we will talk about that coming up next.
And today's episode is brought to you by Policy Genius. Policy Genius is the country's leading online insurance company marketplace. It saves you time and money so you can provide your family with a financial safety net starting today. With Policy Genius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million worth of coverage. Some options offer same-day approval and avoid unnecessary medical exams. Policy Genius helps you compare your options from top companies, and their team of licensed experts is on hand to help talk you through it. Talk to a team of award-winning agents who will walk you through the process step by step. Policy Genius gives you unbiased advice from a licensed expert support team. So, check life insurance off your to-do list in no time with Policy Genius. Head to policygenius.com/lockedonnhl or click on the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com/lockedonnhl.
Are you watching sports on cable TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all the shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Gil, the hits just keep coming to the Arizona Coyotes and their fans. I gotta say, the Coyote social media team is doing everything to try and keep the spirits up of the fan base, and it may be to no avail.
Yeah, it very well could be. And look, this has been going on for so long, and I think so many issues have popped up over time. And you knew Mullet Arena was not sustainable, obviously, for the long haul. But for the dedicated fans in the desert, this has got to be a heartbreaking situation that their team may not be there for very much longer.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where ownership over the years has been so inconsistent and so problematic that it really like I don't know that we truly have a sense of what the market is like because there have been so many missteps along the way. And we've seen that building be full when the Yotes have been in the playoffs. So I think that, there's been just so much behind the scenes to go wrong that there isn't like an impetus for people to be fans of the team because they could leave at any given moment. Right.
Yeah, the earth doesn't feel secure under your feet as an Arizona Coyotes fan, and it's been that way for far too long. so many missteps, so many mistakes made along the way. And you just get the feeling, excuse me, you just get the feeling that if it would have been done the right way, that there could have possibly been a different outcome. And for those dedicated fans who despite all the difficulties and the different arenas and the issues and all of the possible arena locations that were voted on, all the drama over the last decade plus, it just seems like a shame to have it end this way.
Right. And, there had been, several options for an arena in Arizona, a couple of which fell through. There's still this open plan in terms of, a land auction that's supposed to take place in June, with, no guarantee that that would go through as promised. And I think, the league is just like, all right, that's too late. It's we have to know by now because they're already building the schedule for next year. Like you said, Mullet Arena is unsustainable. And so there's like an actual plan in place to sell the team via a league pass through to the Smiths, who own the Jazz in Salt Lake City. And they're preparing a schedule for either option at this point. And I think that it's looking more likely than not in as it stands right now.
Yeah, it is. And you have mentioned in the past you've lived in Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
How well do you think that city could support an NHL team if it comes to that?
Yeah, it's interesting because you look at just the population comparisons, and obviously the Phoenix market is much, much bigger. And the state of Arizona has a ton more people than Utah does. And the Salt Lake market is just like, 1.25, 1.3 million, something like that. And it does not seem very big. However, it is a huge, huge sports market, and we've seen success there in a whole bunch of different avenues. College sports are huge in Utah, with like Utah and BYU there, especially. And they've managed to launch and maintain a very successful Major League Soccer franchise that won the MLS Cup back in 2009. Yes, I remember that stuff because I was there. But um, I think that Utah's also had an interesting history with relocation on both ends of the transaction here, because the Utah Jazz, which is the cornerstone of pro sports in Utah, and the owners of the Jazz are the ones looking to bring the team there. That's a relocated team.
Yes, New Orleans, which New Orleans Jazz just makes
Yes,
much more sense as a
it
name.
does. It
You
does.
say what you want about Utah. It's a lovely, beautiful state. Jazz is not one of
Gorgeous.
those. Not at all. Not at
Right. Right. But also with soccer, on the women's side, the Utah Royals team in the NWSL was originally a relocated team from Kansas City to Utah. Then they lost the team and then now have an expansion team. The Utah Royals Part 2 are back. So there has been fluctuation in the market, but I think hockey is uniquely positioned there because it is a winter sport. Utah is a winter sports town. And you can't really compare like what attendance would look like from the ECHL team that's there, because that's ECHL hockey.
Right, right.
And
And,
back in the day when they had an IHL team, the Golden Eagles,
yeah,
hugely successful.
yeah, big history of minor league hockey there, going all the way back to the 60s, if I'm not mistaken, maybe
Yeah,
even further. And I remember they were a farm team at one point of the California Golden Seals. If you go way back to the 70s, and they did win some championships out there.
they did. They did. And, the hockey community there is very strong. As, somebody who was a member of it, I played hockey in Utah at pretty much every single rink in the Wasatch Front there. And, I remember both times the LA Kings won the Stanley Cup, and Trevor Lewis had his day with the cup in Salt Lake. He is from that area. and the lines were massively long to get their picture with him in the Stanley Cup. So there is a huge and very strong hockey community in the Salt Lake metro area, and they draw from a large geographic area, from Ogden all the way down to Provo, and I really think they can make it work. The arena is there, and the Smiths are committed to doing the upgrades necessary in order to make it a better venue for hockey. I saw hockey there during the Olympics, and it was great. So I think that, there is some promise here. And not to mention, on the side, for the owners, they're going to get a huge chunk of change because they're going to have that transaction be a hell of a lot bigger than what the
Yeah.
Kraken paid.
And that's typical of the NHL. What they're really doing is they're going to buy the franchise from the owners in Arizona if this is how they go. And then it's almost like an expansion fee for the new owners in the sense of how much money they're going to have to pay the league to get in. So Gary Bettman finds a way to make money off of failure, in essence, in some ways.
Right. And with this, with his non-traditional market league expansion being the cornerstone of his legacy, if he's going to fail on one part of it, he is sure as heck going to make the owners a bunch of money doing it.
Yeah, and look, this is not the first non-traditional market team in the Bettman era. If again, we don't know definitely that it's going to happen, but if it does happen, I mean, Atlanta has now failed twice, including once during the Bettman era. So there are some teams that just have struggled, but again, with Arizona, you just wonder if they would have done it the right way, if they would have paid their rent even, how things might have been a little bit different.
Yep, absolutely. But to be continued on that front. Also to be continued is the last week of the NHL schedule, and we will talk about all the big games and their implications coming up next.
Today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. When you're drafting your fantasy team, do you ever wish you could handpick the best stars for your business team? Well, if you're building your talent roster, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Don't spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills when you can do it all with Indeed. Find top talent fast with Indeed's suite of powerful hiring tools like matching, assessments, and virtual interviews. Hate waiting? Indeed's U.S. data shows over 80% of Indeed employers find quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match their job description the moment they sponsor a job. Indeed knows when you're growing your own business, you have to make every dollar count. That's why with Indeed, you only pay for quality applications that match your must-have job requirements. Visit Indeed.com/locked on to start hiring now. Just go to Indeed.com/locked on. Indeed.com/locked on. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application pricing not available for everyone. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
Eat stress-free this spring with Factor's delicious, ready-to-eat meals. Every fresh, never frozen meal is chef-crafted, dietitian-approved, and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. Factor gives you a weekly menu of 35 options, including popular options like Calorie Smart, Keto, Protein Plus, or Vegan and Veggie, plus more than 60 add-ons every week like breakfast, on-the-go lunch, snacks, and beverages to help you stay fueled and feel good all day long. What are you waiting for? Get started today and fuel up for your springtime goals. Factor meals eliminate the hassle of prepping, cooking, or cleaning up. You just heat up your meal and savor the good stuff. Plus, you can customize your weekly meals with flexibility to get as much or as little as you need. You can pause or reschedule deliveries to suit your lifestyle. Plus, we're celebrating Earth Day all month long. Look out for Factor's Earth Month Eats badge on the menu for the lowest carbon footprint meals. Head to factormeals.com/lockedonnhl50 and use the code lockedonnhl50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next box. That's code lockedonnhl50 at factormeals.com/lockedonnhl50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next box while your subscription is active. All right, Gil, this is our last preview of the regular season for the weekend ahead. Of course, we talked about earlier in the show the Carolina Hurricanes at St. Louis Blues. Louis has to win this game.
Must win, and time is obviously running out on the Blues, who have, I must say, given it an honest fight and overcome some obstacles to even still be in the race. And the Hurricanes, if they win, they are pulling close to the Rangers in that battle for first place in the Metro.
Yeah, I think that's going to be another interesting thing to keep an eye on is if, the Rangers can hold on here. Losing a game to the Flyers did not help them in that pursuit. That is for sure.
Yeah, no, and if Carolina wins, what, 1 point back with a couple of games left, so that division race could go down to the wire.
Yeah, and the aforementioned Arizona Coyotes are at Edmonton. If Edmonton wins this game, they can clinch home ice in the first round. They just have to get 1 point in this game, but
Yeah,
a
and they're
win
at
would be
home.
better.
Yeah, they're in a pretty good position to clinch that. And if they don't get it tonight, there are other opportunities, obviously, before the season is over.
Yep, and of course the Wild at Vegas Golden Knights. We talked about that Vegas has to defeat the Wild in regulation with a Blues loss to the Hurricanes, or they win in overtime in a shootout and the Blues lose to the Hurricanes in regulation. If we got that all straight.
Yes.
And then to round out the night, we have the Flames at the Ducks, which is unfortunately for the Flames, I think they would have liked to have this season go a little bit better than it did.
Yeah, disappointing season for the Flames. Very uneven, and they're below NHL 500 right now. But certainly, being in Anaheim, a chance to pick up 2 points.
Yeah, absolutely. Last big Saturday, Islanders versus Rangers. What's the stakes in this one for you, Go?
Well, obviously for the Islanders, I believe their magic number is 3 points right now, so they can pick up some important points. They beat the Rangers on Tuesday, but a lot of controversy. Peter Laviolette upset about a particular hit by Noah Dobson on Mika Zibanejad, on Vincent Trocheck, and then another hit by Adam Pelech on Mika Zibanejad. This one might get a little bit slap-shotty, for lack of a better way to put it, between the rivalry between these two teams and what happened on Tuesday night and the reaction to what happened on Tuesday night. I wouldn't be surprised to see something happen right off the opening faceoff.
Right. Dallas is facing Seattle, and I think people were hoping Seattle would win out a little bit, and people, meaning me, in terms of now this potential lottery odds and draft pick position, but I'm not sure that wish will come true at this point. Jets versus Avalanche, though.
Yeah, two teams coming into this game with identical 49, 24, and 6 records. There could be a lot at stake depending on the outcome of this game.
Right, and that's a potential playoff matchup right there.
Yes, it is. So we could see some messages being sent in this game also.
Yeah, absolutely. The aforementioned Flyers versus Devils game where they're honoring Wayne Simmons should be good. The Red Wings are facing the Leafs in their last efforts to try and make the playoffs.
Yeah, Detroit has stumbled badly late in the season. They're trying to get back into it now. Certainly not out of it, but it's a tall task for them to win in Toronto.
Yeah, and the other exciting game I think for me is Bruins at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh wanting to maintain that playoff position up against a very tough Boston Bruins team.
Yeah, and Boston fighting with Florida for first place in the Atlantic Division. They need the points. Pittsburgh definitely needs the points as they're trying to hold on to that second wild card or maybe even catch the Islanders for third place. Huge implications in this game.
Absolutely. And then looking at Sunday, of course, it all matters what happens tonight in some of these matchups, but we do have the Kraken playing the Blues, which could have some implications. and the Avs playing the Vegas Golden Knights, also with potential implications depending on how Friday goes.
Yeah, and anytime the Avalanche and the Golden Knights get together, you're probably in for an entertaining night of hockey.
Absolutely. And then the Canes are playing the Chicago Blackhawks, which again might have implications in terms of, who's first overall in the Metro here.
Yeah, a lot of implications for seeding and look, let's face it, Chicago is you know, pretty much done with their tank for this year and the injuries that team suffered through. So an opportunity for Carolina to pick up 2 big points.
Absolutely. All right, that will do it for today's show and for the week in the NHL. Gil, you'll be back on Monday talking with local hosts from around the league. I'm betting the Arizona Coyotes will be part of that lineup with all the big news. And we'll be back next Friday to preview the playoff matchups. Very excited to do that. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, now also available on the Amazon Fire TV app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus national shows like this one. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Have a great weekend, everyone.